indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Di Lorenzo,
Present.
Councilmember Struber, Councilmember Spain McLaren,
Present.
Councilmember McKee,
Present.
Councilmember Favreau,
Present.
Councilmember Campbell Cohen,
Present.
Council President Steele.
Also present.
6 present, 1 absent.
Council President, I move that the council resolve itself into a committee of the whole for the purpose of conducting a public hearing.
Clerk, would you please read the notice of publication?
The City Council of the City of Troy will hold a public hearing on February 19th, 2026 at 5:30 PM in the City Council Chambers, Troy City Hall, 433 River Street, 5th floor, Troy, New York. This is in connection with the following matter: a local law adopting the provisions of Article 6A of the Real Property Law to make the good cause eviction law applicable in Troy, New York.
Thank you. I'd like to share with you the rules of the public hearing per section 234 of the special rules of the Troy City Council. No one but a citizen or taxpayer of the city or an attorney at law representing a citizen or taxpayer or group of citizens or taxpayers shall be allowed to speak. The person wishing to speak shall, upon being recognized by the chair, give his or her name and residence, and if an attorney, the names and addresses of every person whom he or she represents. All remarks shall be directed to the chair, and no colloquy between or among persons present shall be permitted. No person shall extend his or her remarks beyond 5 minutes. But if the person represents several others, the chair may make reasonable accommodation. The allowance of any rebuttal remarks shall solely be at the discretion of the chair. We will come forward as is. There's no sign up. So I would just invite you to come forward and give your name and residence. This is the public hearing on local law number 1. Please come forward to the podium.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brian Marsh. I own Marsh Management. I own 4 parcels in the city of Troy, 5 buildings. I represent 17 tenants. On this side of the river, I am all business. On the other side of the river, I am mayor of the village of Manans. I am also a registered Democrat. However, on this side of the river, I am very much a business and consider myself, I won't consider myself a Republican as far as business. I assure you on that. The reason I'm here is I am a small business. I provide quality housing to all of my tenants. My tenants treat me as if we were family, and I treat them equally well. I've gone to the hospital when they have had children. I have testified in court when they need protection and protective orders from the police. I am very fair with my rent. However, my concern about good cause eviction is that it sways everything in favor of tenants without equal protections for small landlords and small businesses like myself. There are a number of things that happened during COVID that very much decimated tenant responsible landlords like myself. I personally lost over $250,000 of income during COVID because of the restrictions that New York State put in place. They were absolutely devastating to me. And unfortunately, the problem I have is that fair, quality landlords like myself will have restrictions put on them that hamstring them for the bad tenants. And there are bad tenants. The protections that they have, especially in court, especially with availability of legal aid, for instance, when someone is non-paying a rent, the court process is long, it is cumbersome. I'm required to hire an attorney. I went to court. They are allowed another 60-day delay in order to retain counsel, which They rarely do. We come back to court 4 months out of a year. I have non-payment of rent. That's 1/4 of my rent for that particular unit gone. How do I recover that? I personally have $200,000+ worth of judgments filed in Rensselaer County for people who have not paid during COVID and beyond. I am very fair and I always try and work it out with my tenants. But what you're doing with good cause evictions is protecting the bad ones. You're hamstringing good landlords into restrictions that don't allow them to reinvest in their properties in Troy. And I have invested hundreds of thousands of dollars into all of my properties in Troy. I am a quality landlord. You can ask code enforcement. I have good relationships with all of them. I have never been reported to code enforcement. I have seen Judge Palazzi many times on my bad tenants. I have gone to court. I have tried to explain to him that after a $25 late fee, because my tenant always pays me the month after, that I finally told her, you're going to have to pay me the $25 late fee as indicated on our lease every month that you pay me late. Every day that she left for work, she would turn the faucet on and leave it on just to incur my water bill that goes from $400 to $1,600 a quarter. How do I recover that if I'm only allowed to raise her rent by 5%? That's the question I ask you. Where is the fairness? I will sit down. I will be a partner to recraft good cause eviction into something that is fair for both tenants. And I believe very much that tenants have a right to housing, that have a right to quality housing, that have a right to have a landlord who's respectful, who addresses their complaints, whether it's 3 a.m. or 3 p.m. That's me. I don't have a management company that I can go to dispatch someone within an hour or whatever they take in order to get there to unclog a toilet. That's me. So I'm caught in the middle. I may not fall within the small landlord category here, but I'm surely not a corporation with hundreds of units. You're forgetting about the people in the middle. That's me. That's my business. That's how I earn a living. And that's how I continue to provide quality housing to the tenants that are citizens, that are employees of the city of Troy. I want to continue to do that. And I'm afraid that you're putting restrictions that are too far in one direction. And I get it. It feels good. And I'm the first up for shot. And I'm sure everybody else will disagree with me that comes after me. But that's it. That's why I'm here. I'm passionate about housing. I'm passionate about the city of Troy. That's why I invested all of my money as a landlord and a small business here. This is too much, too soon. Let's balance the equation. Fairness for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Hi, my name is Jude. I'm a resident of Troy. I'm a renter, and I'm also speaking on behalf tonight of the Troy Democratic Socialists of America. Getting to this forum has taken a lot of work from a lot of people. DSA and our coalition partners have pushed for nearly 2 years to see this legislation passed in Troy. Countless community members, tenants, and homeowners alike, even some landlords, have given their signatures, contacted their council people, and spoken in front of the council in favor of good cause. And before that, many more people put in many more years' work to pass good cause on a statewide level. Without that effort, we wouldn't even have the opportunity to pass it here in Troy. Some opponents of good cause will tell you that it doesn't do enough for renters. In that, they are right. It is a bare minimum bill obliging landlords to hold up their end of a rental lease they've already agreed to, and promising tenants the opportunity to stay in their homes without absurd rent hikes. It doesn't do anything for already sky-high rental prices for the poorly maintained units around the city, and it certainly doesn't begin to touch the real issue, the commodification of our housing. But that's not a reason to vote it down. I have been renting in Troy for 6 years now. Nearly everyone I know in Troy is a renter. I'm not concerned that my landlord will suddenly increase rent to the max allowed under good cause, because right now landlords can increase rent however much they want. I know people who have faced 40% increases in rent in this city. What concerns me is how hard we've had to fight for such a basic protection, that the city at its discretion denied Trojans our lawful rights in the process, and that unless you can afford a lawsuit, there is no recourse for such a denial. What concerns me is I know one person who received the notice about good cause that all landlords statewide were required to send to all of their tenants when the law went into effect in 2024. I certainly didn't get one. What concerns me is that amid what we all know to be a housing crisis, with more and more people overburdened by rent or unable to afford housing at all I see are luxury apartments going up all over the city, poorly built, unaffordable, and untouched by basic legislation like this. Troy needs good cause, and it's not enough. Both are true, because landlords can lie to us, municipalities can deny us our rights. The law astronomically favors landlords over tenants already. Housing court is convoluted and confusing, and legal defense is prohibitively expensive. Renters are treated like we're staying in a hotel, not trying to make our homes. And our homes can be sold out from under us to someone only interested in making money. Housing in this country is treated like a commodity to be traded and profited on, and not a right to which we are all entitled. So long as these things are true, then no, good cause is not enough, but you wouldn't rip out the floors and say it's to manage the hole in the roof. Pass good cause. Don't just think about what the people of Troy need to stay in our homes to continue to make Troy our home. Ask us, talk to us. And while you do, we won't stop fighting, because housing is a human right, and it's time someone acts like it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jude.
Good evening. My name is Juanita Gresham. I'm a senior citizen and a retired social worker. I'm also a resident of Troy. I'm here to speak in support of good cause eviction protections. I want to tell you what it feels like to live in a building where the rent continues to go up, but the condition of the property continues to go down. When I first moved into my apartment, certain amenities were included. Over time, the amenities disappeared. Cable was removed, maintenance response slowed, the building has not improved, it has deteriorated, and the rent increases. There is something deeply unsettling about paying more and receiving less. As a senior citizen on a fixed income, I do not have unlimited earning potential. I cannot simply work more hours to cover another increase. When the rent goes up $100 a year, that is not minor to me. That is groceries, that is medication, that is stability. I have paid my rent on time. I'm a responsible tenant, but even responsible tenants can be priced out. All that is my fear. My fear is not inconvenience. My fear is homelessness. As a former social worker, I have worked with individuals who lost housing. I have seen how quickly it happens. One rent increase too many, one non-renewal, one destabilizing event. Housing insecurity at my age is not a small stressor. It affects my health, it affects my sleep, it affects my blood pressure, it affects my dignity. Good cause would not make me immune for rent increases. It will not give me free housing. It will simply provide basic protections. Reasonable limits on excessive rent hikes. The good to renew my lease if I am a good tenant. The right to be displaced without just cause. That is not radical, that is stability. We are not asking for luxury. We are asking not for special treatment. We are asking for fairness and predictability. No one who pays their rent and follows the rules should live in fear of being pushed out simply because the market allows it. I'm asking you to pass good cause eviction protections for seniors, for working families, for people living paycheck to paycheck, for people who have built their lives in this city. Housing should not feel like a gamble. Please pass good cause. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. My name is Mateo. I live in Lansingburg. I have a wonderful wife and I have a teenager that goes to Lansingburg High School. We moved there just about a year ago after being priced out of the apartment in Burnt Hills we lived in for more than 3 years prior. My father-in-law grew up here in Lansingburg, so while we are not originally locals, our family once began here. Our landlord does not live here and we have never met him. Right after we moved in, he called me, upset that we had not told him about having a dog. My wife has PTSD and her dog is an ESA. I explained to him that we didn't tell him because we have been discriminated against even during that same housing search, but he didn't care and told me I was wrong to keep the information from him, even though we sent him the appropriate documentation and made no attempt to hide anything. Just a few months later, our shower and tub broke, leaving us with no way to bathe. This was Mother's Day weekend on Friday. First, he tried to force me to fix it. I did as he asked and even went so far as to get the necessary tools from Lowe's. But when I told him it was beyond my understanding of plumbing, which is genuinely nothing, he refused to call an emergency plumber and said I would have to wait until Monday. Mind you, my teenager is 15 and 15-year-olds are extremely smelly. He tried to make us wait for days without a way to bathe. When I explained to him that legally he could not do that just to avoid the expense of an emergency plumber, first he lied and said he couldn't find anyone to come out because it was Mother's Day. When I told him I had looked into it and the Roland J. Down plumber was on their way, he got angry with me. He suddenly found a plumber of his choice to come the same day. In a few weeks, we received an email in which he called me litigious, uncompromising, and several other names. He said that we were inconvenient to him. He told us that our upstairs neighbors complained about us all the time, which we know is a lie because we exchanged numbers as soon as we moved in and have a good relationship with them. He told us we should move out over the summer, which was only halfway through the lease. Since then, we've been living in fear that he will try to evict us and we do not have the money for a lawyer to fight it. I would have to figure it out on my own. I am not confident that we would be able to find an apartment in the Lansingburg School District that would fit our needs and be within our budget. My teenager is almost 6 feet tall. While we were looking for an apartment, we already had a hard time finding a second room that would fit his bed, and his feet already hang off the edge of it. My lease is up at the end of this month. He has failed to offer us a lease and also failed to give us the required 30-day notice of intention not to renew a lease. So now we will become month-to-month tenants. I just started a new job. My father-in-law has dementia that is getting worse, and we are trying to figure it out on top of the cancer that is not responding to treatment. I may have to go to court on top of all this, where I am not entitled to a lawyer, in case you didn't know. Not entitled to a lawyer in the court we would have to go to. I cannot afford one just to keep my family in the apartment that we take good care of. My child is doing so much better in this school. In Burnt Hills, they went from failing English to getting 100 on the final exam in like 2 months. My child is planning on going to BOCES for construction next year, and he might not be able to do that if we have to move out of district. He's taking multiple classes through Hudson Valley Community College as a 15-year-old, and all of that work could go to waste if he has to move out in the middle of his school year. My wife has been accepted at Hudson Valley Community College and hopes to be an ultrasound technician. Every time we go grocery shopping, we buy at least one thing to put in a local free food fridge. We are close with our neighbors who have been here for 10 years or more. We love this city and are committed to honoring those who have lived here a long time, and we want to be here for a long time too. But without good cause, we might be kicked out simply because we are an average working class family. An average working class people can't afford lawyers. Our landlord doesn't like the fact that I know my rights. Knowing your rights does nothing when your rights are unaffordable or worse, unenforceable. While I was begging my landlord over the phone to fix my water, he told me that he only became a landlord because his job doesn't compensate him fairly. I do not exist to supplement somebody's income. I too have not paid enough for the work that I do, but I don't have the money to buy a building somewhere that I don't live and make that some random person's problem. I don't have the money to play with people's lives because I feel like I deserve some more money. All I am asking you to do is allow me to take care of my family. What am I supposed to say to my child when he says, Dad, please let me stay in this school? If you pass good cause eviction, I can look my child in the eye and say, you will be here. You do not have to leave your friends again. So please, for the safety and security of Troy's families, both old and new, pass good cause eviction because some of our lives depend on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mateo.
Hi, everyone. My name, can you hear me?
You'll have to
No.
speak right into the mic,
Like
please.
right here?
Mhm.
That's really
Okay.
close. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Michelle Ledbetter. You said I was supposed to say a bunch of other things when I came up here. I already forgot it. What was it?
Do you live in Troy?
Yes, I live in Troy.
That's it.
I'm a landlord. I own four houses, and I have about 16 doors. Sorry, I have 16 doors. I came here to talk about, at first, I came here to talk about how good cause, I'm not really for it because of what I've gone through with my tenants, because I am just like the gentleman over there who really takes care of their tenants, and I have a good intention, and I don't scam or own any types of slums. But after hearing just a few people speaking, I realized that not everybody is a good landlord, and it puts people in a very, very difficult and uncomfortable position where they feel like they're stuck between a rock and homelessness. Especially from what I've seen as a renter, especially people with animals, specifically dogs and puppies that, pee on stuff. I I just wanted to say that also that maybe Troy might need an option or a situation where if you have a good landlord, that somehow there has to be some type of registration online or somewhere that's easily accessible so people understand and can see what these people are offering. And then there should also be full transparency on what their prices are and why they believe that those prices are fair. Because for me, I have fair prices, but then I notice that I have to explain why it's fair. Some people don't understand. So I feel like if it's somewhere that's public and these numbers are public and it's transparent, then maybe if people can look at the comparison of prices for what you're getting, that might help. And then also, I think maybe, because this has nothing to do with renters, maybe there needs to be more options for people to live that's affordable, like small houses, tiny houses, or additional types of condos that will look a lot different. I do have a plan that I'm not going to talk about now, but I will probably be back here to talk about it very in-depthly and hope you guys look into it. But I do want to say that also has nothing to do with anything. I feel so sorry for that man. That man should not have to deal with that. But, what a snarky person would say is, oh, well, just go buy a house. Well, most people who live in this area can't afford a house that's the size of what I afford, and I barely afford it. And it's like, even if you afford the house, as you can see just by looking around Troy, people are struggling to keep it together. Like something like a plumbing issue, like he said, for the average renter, they're like, oh, just fix this, this, and this. It should be easy. But a lot of times with these old houses, a lot of this maintenance is very specific and it's not always that easy. And it is sometimes difficult to find people right away who actually know what they're doing, because there's a lot of contractors who say that they know what they're doing. And from my experience of spending thousands of dollars, they don't always know. But I know I don't want to run on too much. I just wanted to put that out there for a new, maybe different type of housing that needs to be available in Troy that's under 250, or even better, under 200K. Because People, it's not always appropriate for everybody to be a renter. If you have a dog and you have a problem where you're a veteran and you need to keep that dog near you, like in my apartment, I don't allow dogs because of the types of flooring I have. Any type of pee goes on there, I have to rip up the whole floor, and it's beautiful. I'm just not gonna. I just in my types of places I can't do that. But then I just allowed somebody with 2 dogs in a different property on the other side, a newer house. But I just think that we just need more options for people with children, people with cats, people with dogs, and people who have baggage that they don't have to tell Big Brother about and pay extra money for it. Because of course, a dog costs extra money, cats cost extra money. Sometimes if you have a lot of children, because of the cost of the heating, and if you have heating included, or if you have water included or trash, you need more trash bins, there's more money for more people. It's not really sustainable the way that it's going right now to have to worry about paying rent that's going to go up in a year every year. And that's someone who actually makes money doing it. And I'm telling you that because it's not, I don't know if anybody feels like agreeing with me, but that's like someone saying, okay, your mortgage is going to go up 5 or 6% every year. I couldn't do that. But you know what does go up? All the no offense to anybody here, but the Troy fees go up, the water goes up. I try to add another apartment, can't do it because now there's a random, the codes change in over a year. And then the cost of money to do like any type of planning is very difficult. Am I over 5 minutes? I'm going to stop. I'm going to keep going. So thank you so much for your time, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you very much. You keeping track? Yeah, please. Eric, I want to remind you that we have a 5-minute limit for each speaker.
The passage of good cause eviction in Troy would be one small victory in the battle for tenant protections. The truth is that GCE will provide only minimal protections for tenants. Most evictions are based on considerations other than those that the GE encompasses. Additionally, the law allows a maximum rent increase of 10%, which is far too high, and it also allows exceptions to landlords to raise the rents even higher. Let me be perfectly clear. The lofty goal of tenant protections in Troy cannot come to fruition unless the most egregiously corrupt and incompetent officials who have their hands on the levers of housing policy are removed from office, the charter and code are revised, and the Emergency Tenant Protection Act is instituted in our city. Let me illustrate the practical realities of what tenants are facing in the real world. There's 2 procedural pathways where a tenant can be evicted: holdover and non-payment of rent. If a case goes to trial where a landlord is seeking to evict a tenant based upon one of the permissible causes under good cause eviction, the landlord must provide facts to substantiate that the tenant can be evicted. Although the landlord has the burden of proof, the responsibility then rests on the tenant to refute the allegations. Regarding a raise in the 10%, there's a rebuttable presumption that it's illegal. But again, the tenant must prove this by a preponderance of evidence, and that evidence is typically in the hands of the landlord and his agents, and our housing court judge does not allow tenants to issue subpoenas. To prevail in an eviction case in Troy would require more than a slim amount of legal sophistication. Tenants routinely lose their cases for a variety of reasons that have nothing to do with the merits of the case, such as being unable to phrase questions correctly or being able to admit evidence such as photographs. Unfortunately, our housing court judge views himself as a hardcore partisan defender of landlords and is quick to rule against tenants on a consistent basis. Let me tell you that the last time that the Attorney General of the state of New York brought criminal charges against the Troy Department of Code Enforcement, Mark Pelosi, our current housing court judge, was the defense attorney. Now he's the housing court judge. In other housing courts throughout this state, judges assist unsophisticated tenants by rephrasing inappropriately formatted questions or directly asking the landlord questions. Referred to as questions from the bench, this practice is legally recognized in all jurisdictions and viewed as not only acceptable, but necessary. A tiny fraction of evictions are based on holdovers. 5 to 10 tenants would have benefited from good cause eviction last year if it had been in place. Most tenants are evicted in non-payment cases, and others are forced out of their homes extrajudiciously because they can no longer afford to pay their rents. In 2025, there were only 154 holdover cases, but there were 1,404 non-payment cases. And many of these people who were evicted had an adequate legal defense, but involving substandard living conditions or other issues, but they lacked the legal expertise to present their case in the format required by the court. Between 40 and 70% of tenants in Troy are rent stressed or rent exhausted. Every single day that this council does nothing, there will be rent increases. By the next time this council meets, thousands of tenants will have been forced to pay an increase exceeding 5% or more.
Thank you, Eric. You've exceeded your time.
These people need your help, and they need it now.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council President Steele and members of the council. My name is Zachary Rusconi. I am a homeowner in Troy's District 1, represented by Mr. DiLorenzo. 65% of our city rents the homes they own in. That elevates housing stability from a niche concern to the primary financial issue facing Troy today. I'm here to endorse the council opting into good cause eviction legislation, and I'd like to briefly outline why that is. First, these reforms create a more economically fair and stable market by giving tenants protections from arbitrary or capricious non-renewal of leases, reinforcing existing protections against arbitrary or capricious evictions. We give renters the confidence to stay in Troy long-term, strengthening our city by transforming temporary transient visitors or short-term students into lifelong Trojans. These reforms also protect our neighbors' bank accounts by preventing arbitrary or unanticipated severe rent hikes during a time of, let's face it, national economic instability. When rent spikes unpredictably, families lose more than just the home they live in. They lose a school. They lose their neighbors. They lose the stability that living in Troy can provide them. These reforms also solve an oft complained issue for local landlords by clarifying the existing restrictions in the law. They remove gray areas and outline exactly when an eviction, a non-renewal of a lease, or a rent increase is legally allowed. That protects both sides of a valid business contract, and it encourages our honest landlords to feel secure in their rights as property owners. On that same note of fair protections for both landlords and renters, I would like to urge the council to adopt New York State's standard 10-unit exemption for small landlords, as opposed to the sometimes considered 1-unit cap. This provides breathing room for honest local landlords who might own 2 or 3 buildings while ensuring housing protections are focused where they're needed most, on large, ambitious corporate landlords and private equity firms that are increasingly snatching up property all across upstate New York. Lastly, a word on knock-on effects. We know that good cause eviction protections work. New Jersey has had laws very similar to good cause eviction for half a century, and cities throughout Hudson County in the last decade have seen as much as an 8% increase in both available rental units and renter-occupied units, demonstrating that the rental market increases under these rules. These increases are not despite good cause eviction. They are in fact largely due to the stability that these laws provide. I do respect this council's decision, but I urge you to opt into good cause eviction and adopt the 10-unit exemption to help make Troy a leader in fair housing. Thank you.
Thank you, Zachary.
Hello, council members. My name is Brian Paz Hernandez, and I live in South Troy, specifically in City Council District 5. I'm here tonight in support of the Good Cause Ordinance. I'm a renter. I'm a tenant. I'm a high school teacher who lives paycheck to paycheck. Good cause legislation is not about punishing landlords. I believe that landlords have the right to make a profit and provide housing, but they do not have the right to evict people for whatever reason. This ordinance is about making sure that the power dynamic that already exists between landlords and renters do not become exploited. Most tenants just want a decent place to call home, and many landlords simply want responsible tenants. Good cause provides an even playing field. We're not advocating for property neglect on the either side. I've heard landlords cite cases where the tenant was irresponsible. We don't support that. We're advocating for the protection of tenants who are contributing members of our community. The majority of Troy residents are renters, and safe housing is a human right. One of the reasons I really want you guys to pass this is because of the rent increases limits in the ordinance. The ordinance defines an unreasonable rent increase as more than 5% plus the annual consumer price index inflation rate, or a flat 10%, whichever is lower. We should pass this because it will at least ensure already high rents do not increase even further to a significant degree. This issue intersects with so many other issues that our city is facing. We're dealing with a high number of homeless people, high levels of crime, a high cost of living. The city government should be doing everything it can to reduce crime and reduce the cost of living. Research shows that there's connections between housing instability and certain types of crime. The link is rooted in economic stress, displacement, and weakened community stability. So when rent rises faster than wages, that's a problem for so many Troy residents, including myself. We have to deal with intense financial pressure. And in much of the country, renters spend nearly half or more of their income on housing. So we really need those increased limits to put into law. I personally spend most of my income on housing. I'm sure a lot of people here do as well. That leaves little flexibility to absorb emergencies such as medical bills, car repairs, or job loss. You know, I recently actually got a flat tire from one of these darn potholes, and the new tire purchase ate into what was supposed to go for rent. So, you know, it's really puts us in a really tough position. You know, once a Troy family falls behind or a bad landlord decides to evict someone for an unreasonable cause, eviction takes place. And after eviction, securing new housing becomes more difficult due to application fees, becomes harder because there's You have to deal with security deposits and credit checks. A single eviction record can follow someone for years, closing off future housing options. So we don't want to have this kind of instability because it increases how vulnerable people are. People who lose housing may, are more vulnerable, and we can see sometimes they may engage in low-level offenses such as sleeping on private property when they're homeless. So we know that here in Troy, areas with limited economic opportunity, underfunded schools. I once worked at KIPP Troy High School, and that area definitely has very few job opportunities. And the folks who live in those areas may experience significant financial instability. Expensive rent worsens poverty by eating up Troy residents' income that could otherwise go to medicine or to groceries. I personally know what it's like to have to choose between rent or medicine. I know what it's like to have to choose between rent and a car repair. And it's dehumanizing. I feel robbed of my dignity when I have to make those really hard decisions. So passing this ordinance will reduce the rates of eviction. Evictions function as a pipeline to long-term hardship. Losing housing disrupts employment. It destabilizes children's schooling. It's a huge strain on our mental health and increases contact with the criminal legal system. So I want to close with this. I'm aware that this ordinance will most likely pass here in the city council, and I thank the council members who worked hard for years to make this moment happen. This really is a multi-year struggle, and I also want to thank Troy DSA for working so hard on this as well. I really urge Mayor Carmelo Montello to sign this into law. The majority of Troy residents are renters. Will the mayor stand with the majority of Trojans, or will she stand with bad landlords who evict people without a good reason or raise rents in a time of high inflation? Will the mayor stand with working class tenants or the donor class? So I encourage Mayor Montello, do the right thing and approve this. If not, we will remember your veto next. Remember who you stood to protect. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
Hello, my name is Fosdale Moore. Although I'm not a resident of Troy, I live in Manans. The reason I'm here is to talk about good cause and my neighbors. No tenant should be feared legally eviction, outrageous rent hikes, or retaliatory non-renewal of lease. I'd like to see you finally pass good cause legislation so we can stop bad landlords from mistreating and exploiting our people. They deserve better, and so does our city. Please get this done for all of us. Also, when I lived in Troy, I lived in the 161 Washington apartment number 7. My landlord, when I was a kid, refused to get several things fixed. That is the reason why we moved to Manans. My landlord now refuses to fix the back door, which is why I've kept my heat so high and why good cause needs to be passed. All I ask is that you equally look at both sides and pass this. Otherwise, landlords can do whatever they please and no one will be accounted for. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there, folks. I'm Elizabeth O. I live in District 4. I am one of the leads on the Good Cause campaign. I'm a member of BSA, proudly. I'd like to speak to the one apartment concern. You've previously heard arguments in favor of 10 houses or of 10 apartments before Good Cause comes into effect. Unfortunately, anyone who knows who really wants to game it can simply make LLCs that hold less than 10 units each. And then in this way, large corporate landlords can get around any good cause in any way that does not have the 1 unit limitation. So it's really important that we maintain the 1 unit limitation as is in Albany. You've heard a lot of personal stories here today. I'm also a renter. I have to deal with a leaky roof, all that stuff. But I want to speak to some numbers. In 2023, when our housing campaign was just getting off the ground, rent was around $1,100 for the average Troy resident. And they had an average household income of $66,000 a year. Currently, rent is around $1,430 a year for the average Troy resident. Their income is $70,000 a year. Y'all can do the math on that. Before we even account for inflation from grocery bills, increases in consumer consumer good prices, it's becoming an unsustainable situation that you are in a position to help a little bit. We've kept some data on the amount of evictions that have happened in Troy. And we've also looked at how evictions have been reduced in Albany and other cities. If Good Cause was passed last year when we first started asking people to pass it, somewhere between 150 to like on the bottom end, about 80, 70 people would still be in their, families would still be in their homes. I urge you to pass this as quickly as possible without the loophole, maintaining 1 unit as the minimum requirement. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Hunter. I live in Lansingburg. There's a lot of stuff that's already been said way better by other people, but I'm going to speak a little bit here in support of Good Cause Eviction. I work at a nonprofit downtown, and in my role, I cover Albany and Rensselaer counties. The overwhelming of calls that I get from people who live in Rensselaer County are Troy residents who are struggling with housing. Over the past 7 years where I've worked at this nonprofit, I've had a handful of these residents call me for assistance with finding housing because their leases were not renewed. These folks were given no reason for the decision to not renew. There were no lease violations, no late or missing payments. These people ultimately had to drop everything in order to secure housing on a short timeline. When this happens, people's jobs and lives are jeopardized with no explanation and no cause. While I do support Good Cause, it is a little bit tepid and gentle in terms of its legislation. There are a lot of other things going on in Troy with regards to housing that need to be worked on as well. I got a call this morning from a Troy resident who needs help finding and applying for housing because in this case, this individual and all of their neighbors in their building are without running water and are unable to do anything about it except for try their luck applying elsewhere. They're unable to do anything about it because they know that calling code enforcement would likely result in their homelessness much faster than if they went to eviction court for non-payment. I've gotten calls from far more Troy residents in this situation than I have from Troy residents who could have been protected by Good Cause. While I support Good Cause, and I hope that the city council enacts it and enacts the will of the residents of Troy by putting it into law, it doesn't protect tenants as much as tenants deserve protection. I would like to live in a Troy where I can let people know that they can call code enforcement in order to have their issues worked on. As things stand right now, I cannot in good faith suggest that anybody who calls me in this situation contact code enforcement because in many cases, they are likely to be summarily homeless as a result. Hopefully, once Good Cause passes, this can be another issue that the city council is willing and able to address. Thank you.
Thank you, Hunter.
Hi, everyone. I'm Frances Sweet from South Troy. I got involved in Good Cause only last spring. They've been working on this for a lot longer, and I commend all of the people who've worked and led that campaign. And we're really close. And I just wanted to say that the mayor has said on Facebook to just call code when you have a problem. And She spoke on affordable housing during the state of the city. Well, this is how you start that. This is the bare minimum. This is the way forward for residents of Troy, for renters of Troy. And if she really wants to back up what she says, then she won't veto this. And maybe she'll even get reelected. Bye.
Thank you, Francis.
Good evening, council members. My name is Frankie and I'm a long-term renter here in Troy. I've spoken to the council many times in support of good cause, and I'm hoping and praying that tonight can be the last. The absurdly long struggle for fundamental tenant protections makes me think of this line from an old folk song. How many ears must one man have before he can hear people cry? I and others have spoken for the past year on virtually every element of good cause. We've shared personal stories of outrageous rent increases, deplorable living conditions, inadequate code enforcement, and landlord retaliation. We've collectively addressed and debunked every false assertion about good cause that's been put forward by the mayor, former city councilors, and local slumlords. How much more do we need to say before the city of Troy can hear our cries for the simple, no-cost tenant protections that good cause can provide? We've said enough. But the mayor and her associates disagree. The mayor continues to assert that good cause is an attack on landlords and developers, basically painting slumlords and profiteers as victims somehow, which is just ridiculous. Millions of tenants across New York State are already protected by good cause legislation, and the sky hasn't fallen, and development hasn't screeched to a halt, and landlords haven't stopped making profits. Good cause isn't an attack on anybody. It's just good public policy. But the mayor would rather say that tenants and our low awareness levels are the problem in Troy. As you may have seen in a recent press release, the mayor basically suggested it's our fault if we're having a hard time with bad landlords because we don't know our rights and we aren't using her newly compiled list of online resources to fight them. Yeah, we should know better and do better to protect ourselves from unscrupulous landlords in Troy. It's just like the former city councilor Tom Casey once told us, if you have a bad landlord, just get a U-Haul and move. They have so little understanding of what it means to be trapped in substandard housing because you're rent burdened or poor. They're so out of touch with how limited your housing choices are if you have kids or pets or a disability or a low-wage job or no car or no savings. There's such an absence of compassion for people in our own community who are actively struggling and suffering. And if we can't afford to get a U-Haul and move, the mayor says we should go online and complain to the Attorney General. The problem is that most people with housing concerns have an immediate need, not all the time in the world to lodge an environmental protection or civil rights complaint that will go nowhere fast. So the Attorney General's website is not particularly useful. What is interesting on that website is the information about good cause tenant protections, including a list of all the cities in New York that enjoy those protections. Why isn't Troy on that list? I guess we'll have to ask the mayor because she's the only local holdout on getting good cause passed. And the rest of the online resources that the mayor says will solve tenants' problems in place of good cause, they're mostly Albany or New York City based, and they're unavailable to Troy renters, or they're overwhelmed agencies with more demand than they can handle, or they're state or federal level bureaucracies that move at a snail's pace. So it's unlikely Troy renters will ever get the help we need from those resources, which, by the way, makes them non-resources. So how could we get the mayor to understand our needs and hear our cries? How about we put the mayor and her team into a rental unit with a rodent infestation, a caved-in ceiling from a roof leak, black mold spreading on the walls, broken smoke alarms, blocked emergency exits, rotting trash piled up on the property. Let's put the mayor in the same position Troy renters are in every day and see if her special press release and her stellar code enforcement department and her precious online resources are of any use at all. You can't fool us by replacing real help with that kind of artificial caring. There's nothing more insulting than pretending to care, but doing nothing to make a difference. I entered the good cause fight because a developer bought my apartment complex, jacked up the rent, priced out most of my friends and neighbors, and then let the property decline. I stayed in the good cause fight because I realized that my local government thought all of that was perfectly okay. Witnessing that callousness and indifference changed me and lit a fire in me to fight for housing justice in Troy. I and many others became politically active because our government representatives told us our voices didn't matter. But they didn't realize what would happen when they sent that message. They didn't anticipate that their words would bring us closer and make us stronger as a community. They didn't expect that we would band together and stake our collective claim as full citizens of Troy. Good cause is only on the agenda tonight because we pushed it forward and because this new council listened and took our concerns seriously. I thank you for that, and I urge you to finish the job and get good cause on the books because it's about time someone heard our cries. Thank you.
Thank you, Frankie. Does anyone else wish to speak? Seeing none? No? Okay.
I know I already spoke, but since people have spoken directly to my situation, is it okay if I make a couple comments?
If you could make them brief, please.
Sure. First of all, I want to point out that a lot of people have said that my situation is terrible. My landlord owns one building. He owns one building that has 2 units in it. I am one, my neighbors are the other. If you go with this 10-unit thing, I'm still screwed, to put it plainly. Nothing is protecting me. I also know that retaliatory eviction is illegal. My landlord has incriminated himself in writing that what he is doing is retaliatory and discrimination. I can't do anything about it. My family needs a home. When am I supposed to go to court? I have to work during the hours that they hold court. I'm not entitled to a lawyer. I can't afford a lawyer. So even the protections that we quote unquote have right now are not enforceable. So you've already heard the statistics of how many people had good cases and still lost because we were put in these entirely impossible situations as tenants. I also just want to say I am not living in some luxurious apartment. My apartment sucks, y'all. And I'm still fighting to stay there because I don't know where else I can go. I've already done the apartment search. This is where we ended up. We signed up for one other apartment, and once we disclosed that we have an ESA and we will hand you over the paperwork, suddenly they couldn't move forward anymore for some reason. So between a rock and a hard place is absolutely true. But the other thing is again, not a luxurious apartment. We only realized that the previous occupants smoked inside everywhere after my kid's asthma started acting up when it really is not usually a problem. My bedroom is cold enough to wake me from sleep if my arm falls out of the blanket. And because allegedly the heating system is functioning, my landlord claims that it's not his problem. And yes, we have winterized the windows. So now we have to run a space heater, which my room is so small that we can only maintain about a foot around the space heater at any side of it. The instructions say you need a minimum of 3 feet in order to safely operate this thing. And you're not supposed to use it while you sleep. So I'm already in an unsafe situation. I tried to call code enforcement, like was suggested by the mayor. And then I realized this is going to kick me out of my home if I call code enforcement. So I called them back and I said, actually, I'm sorry, don't come. So I just needed to speak to some of the other things that have been said and clarify. We also were looking for a house in Lansingburg several months ago. That changed because of my father-in-law's health and because we needed to change priorities. But in Lansingburg, the school district that we love so much, every single building that we looked at was in such horrific, like disrepair. There was no way we could have actually afforded it. It would have been minimum double the amount of money that we were allowed by the bank to go with. So you can't buy a house because even if you can afford it, code enforcement probably wouldn't let you live in that house. You can't afford to fix the house. You can't afford to fix the things that your landlord won't fix. Can't afford the rent when your landlord hikes up the rent. Can't afford to find another place if your landlord hikes up the rent or just decides they don't want to rent to you anymore for no reason. So there you go. That has addressed a couple other things that have been suggested. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Mateo. Certainly.
And I live in District 4.
I'm sorry, you're going to need to speak into the mic.
My name is Tony Mawad and I live in District 4.
Thank you.
So, I spend a lot of time listening and I'm trying to make the best sense of, and a lot of this stuff just doesn't make any sense to me. I've spoken to a lot of landlords and I've spoken to tenants and this doesn't make sense to them neither. And, they have like so many rights. They have more rights. This is New York State. New York State has more rights than tenants have than any place in the country. And to be a landlord is like nearly impossible here. So to be a landlord, okay, you have to come up with hundreds of thousands of dollars as an investment. You could try that. And then you have to come up with all kinds of regulations. You have to have a budget. While you're being taxed more, then you can hold the place up. And there's a lot of people that say, I don't even want to be a landlord. And this is just going to chase out more of the landlords. Owner-occupied people will want to leave. And this is not good for good tenants. I've spoken to good tenants. This doesn't make sense to them. If you have a problem tenant, I don't know how that benefits to keep them there. You're giving all the rights to a bad tenant over the rightful owner and the other tenants. And to think that none of this just makes sense. Why would you get rid of a good tenant? That doesn't even make sense neither. Everything I'm hearing just doesn't make sense. Like they say that they don't have any rights. They got all the rights more than any state like in the country. And if you give them this, then they're going to keep on saying, well, we want more rights. And I know where this is going. If I said you can have the house, then they'll say, well, we want money to fix it and someone else can fix it. I work when I'm bleeding and I keep on working. I don't say somebody help me out. I just do what I'm supposed to do to hold the building together while I'm trying to be bankrupted. So try that out. My place was vandalized. You remember that? And what help did I get? They tried to destroy my place as I gave them my
Please direct
best
your
hospitality.
comments to the chair, please.
I'm sorry?
Please direct your comments to the chair.
As I was giving them my best hospitality, the thanks I got was to have my place vandalized. When you give them your best, it's still not good enough. You have to have your place, squatter after squatter take over the place. You're not allowed to run your place. I've written everything. This doesn't make any sense whatsoever. What kind of investor wants to come in and not be able to evict a tenant that is causing all kinds of problems? Not all problems can be proven. What if the people are running up and down the stairs above you, like what I've experienced, 3 o'clock in the morning, just to annoy you, just because you have rules? Just because you say, you know, could you have some respect? Trying to get somebody to be respectful to you when they're not a respectful person is going to make them even more disrespectful. I've been doing this for 16 years. I know. I don't even know what kind of etiquette goes on in this city. I learned my manners from the best, and I give it to them for them to vandalize my place. You've seen the emails. I've showed him pages and pages of emails. I've got police reports. My house has been broken into. This is for being the best I could be. It's this. I can't even. They want communism is what they want. Okay, it's never going to end. It's just give me more. We gave him the harshest laws in the country. It's still not enough. To be a landlord, you have to buy property. That's a big, huge investment. For them to come in, you're not even asking for a full % of the building. Do you understand? Like, just to ask them for a deposit is like, oh, I can't do that. Well, I just came up with like, 300 grand, 200 grand. What about that? Can you just have enough respect for what we do? If a boiler goes, you'd have to repair it. How much is that? 10,000 right there. And I have to hear their problems like I'm their social worker. I'm not your social worker. I deal with my own budget. And my apartment will be 40 if I can't afford the heat. And I have to hear their problems. I don't tell anybody my problem. You never hear anything from me. And
Thank you, Tony. Thank
okay,
you.
thanks a lot.
We appreciate it. Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak?
Looks like there's two.
Okay.
And I'll be brief. So if something about this legislation doesn't make sense.
Please
and-
give us your name.
Yes, sorry. My name is Rachel Rampel, District 3, and I've spoken before on this. So if it doesn't make sense, then just read the legislation. I don't know why this is so hard. I mean, nobody likes to read, but really there's good information there as to what it does and doesn't do. And it still absolutely allows landlords to run a business because that's what being a landlord is. It's owning a business. I'm also a small business owner in the city of Troy, and I have way more in the way of regulations that are foisted upon my business. And sure, it's a pain. It's a pain sometimes. It costs money, but my business is so that I can make a living. And it's also an investment in the work that I do and in the future that I want to have. And even owning property, property is one of the most lucrative over the long period investments you can have, almost no matter what you do with it. The cost of living just keeps going up. The cost of housing just keeps going up. So landlords, in a way, they're making money twice over because yes, because they're buying the building, they own it, they will eventually sell it someday. Plus they are also getting rent in the meantime. Yes, of course, taxes, keeping up building maintenance, lots of other things. But at the same time, it's a business. You're doing it to make money. You're doing it to have short-term gains and also long-term gains. And if you're struggling to make a living doing really any kind of business, you got to figure that out. I don't know, regulations are part of really any business. And currently, the business arrangement between landlord and tenant is a contract. And right now, yes, theoretically, there are laws that protect the tenant side of it, but really in practice, only the landlord's side of the contract is what leads, because landlords don't have to follow any of the responsibilities that are associated with their contract. And all over Troy, I mean, anyone can say that they've talked to people. I've knocked on hundreds of doors in Troy of renters, getting 1,800 signatures or helping with that effort. So we actually have talked to people. And really, in almost every instance, the lease agreement that a landlord has with their tenant, the landlord can just do whatever they want. And there's really no enforcement for them to like other than code, but again, code can just get people out of the building and then the landlord doesn't really have to do anything. Unless at some point they want to have a new tenant, but you know, the cycle repeats itself. So I just wanted to be clear that we are talking about people who run a business. You know, I also run a business and I don't want things to be overly onerous, but I also know that like, I'm in my business to make money doing it. And so are they. And so that's what we're talking about here. Just wanted to be clear. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel.
Hello, my name is Lawrence. I am a homeowner in District 2. I just wanted to come today to speak as a homeowner in support of tenants, particularly in my neighborhood, who I see. When my husband and I bought our home about 11 months ago, the first people to welcome us to the neighborhood were tenants, the folks who lived right next door. And the first thing that my neighbor said to me was she talked about how proud she was and loved the neighborhood, but she apologized for the exterior of her home because her landlord failed to do any amount of maintenance. And that includes very clear cracks in the foundation and things like that, that appear cosmetic, but that have, structural problems to the home that she just feels like she has to deal with and has no recourse. We have neighbors across the street who regularly call code enforcement for problems relating to the landlord shutting off utilities in a retaliatory fashion in the middle of the night, removing appliances, joint appliances from the basement, because the landlord got into a dispute with one of the tenants. And again, as a homeowner, the tenants in our neighborhood are who make the neighborhood, who make the community. Without them, there is no community around where we live. And so, I mean, I think folks have already spoken at length about how 65% or so of the city are tenants and our renters. And so I just very briefly wanted to speak to the fact that as a homeowner, I mean, there's truly no issue to me and what's being presented. It only provides stability to those who should be able to stay and thrive and live in the neighborhoods that they've made their homes. And so again, I just wanted to provide a perspective as a homeowner and speak in support of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no one else who wishes to speak, I would entertain a motion to conclude the hearing.
Motion.
Councilmember McLaren, second.
Second.
Councilmember McKee, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The public hearing is hereby closed. We'll go right into the second. Is that all right? It is 6:43, and we will now open and call the public hearing to order. Clerk, you've already called the roll. I guess we can, there have been no changes.
Council President, I move that the council resolve itself into a committee of the whole for the purpose of conducting a public hearing.
Clerk, please read the publication notice.
The City Council of the City of Troy will hold a public hearing on February 19th, 2026 at 5:45 p.m. in the City Council Chambers, Troy City Hall, 433 River Street, 5th floor, Troy, New York. This is in connection with the following matter. A local law amending Chapter 2 of the Code of the City of Troy to add a new Article 7 for the purpose of authorizing remote participation by video conferencing for the public, members of the City Council, and all other public bodies of the City of Troy.
Thank you. The rules of the chair are the same as the previous public hearing. Does anyone wish to speak in connection with local law number 2? For the second time, does anyone wish to speak in connection with local law number 2?
Rachel Rampel, District 3. Yes, do it. The remarks from the last city council in their opposition to it were ridiculous and offensive. So yes, please pass it.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak in connection with local law number 2?
Now, here's one horrifying example of what's going on in the tenant world. My 77-year-old neighbor
Eric, we're on local law number 2.
received, excuse me?
We're on local law number 2, which
Two.
is,
Oh, excuse me. Okay. We'll
which
wait
is
for the
about
next session.
videography.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha,
Yeah,
gotcha.
thank you.
I have no comment on that.
Okay, alrighty. Does anyone else have any comments on the fact that we will be videoing and allow videography in our meetings?
I'm Frankie from Troy, and I just want to say it's 2026. What took you so long?
Thank you. Seeing none, no other speakers, I would entertain a motion to close the hearing. Motion. Councilmember Favreau, second. Councilmember McLaren, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned from public hearing. Okay to go right into finance? It is now 6:46, and we will begin the Finance Committee meeting. We have pledged allegiance. We have called the roll. So I would now open a public forum on any agenda item. Please limit your remarks to any of the items on tonight's Finance Committee agenda. And again, it's 5 minutes.
As I was saying, my 77-year-old neighbor in 2024 received an 8% rent increase. And last year she was hit with another 8% increase. Now, even though she cares for her disabled sister and she herself has medical issues, she's been forced to return to work to have enough money to pay her disgusting out-of-state greedy landlord. So I asked somebody up here, somebody back there, in what universe is that okay? We need to level the playing field because in jurisdictions where tenants have the right to legal representation or access to counsel, whether it be pro se or their own attorney, or there's an alternative litigation mechanism, evictions have fallen by 50 to 60%. That's right, 50 to 60%. Now, good cause eviction was a carve out from the Emergency Tenant Protection Act. Everything that good cause eviction has, plus more, is in the Emergency Tenant Protection Act. It is no coincidence that this city has no landlord-tenant relations council. It is no coincidence that this city council has no housing subcommittee. It is no coincidence that the code provides for a whole housing board of review, but the charter makes no provision for its creation. It is no coincidence that there has never been the issuance of a study concerning housing in Troy, and no annual report has ever been issued, including the accomplishments, which there have not been many, and recommendations, despite the fact that Section 176(5) of the code mandates that this be done each and every year by the director of code and enforcement, who's making $100,000 a year. So when I say that they're not doing their jobs, that is not a personal attack. That is a descriptive term. These are not unintentional oversights that we're the only city that doesn't have these things. They're the result of long-term purposeful scheme to mask a housing policy that is built on a foundation of corruption. These things need to be fixed, and this council was elected to do that. Now, by virtue of local law and the United States Constitution, speakers before this council retain the right to address all matters within the proper jurisdiction of this council. And like it or not, waste, fraud, corruption, malfeasance, and incompetence by city agencies or personnel is included in that definition. When this council invokes admonitions telling a speaker to refrain from making so-called personal attacks levied against city officials with proven histories of evil anti-tenant tendencies, a fear arises among tenants that only window dressing rather than tangible reform will be the product of our protestations before you. We have been stymied in the past. We have strived to bring forth meaningful reform of Troy housing policy and tenant protections, and we've been stopped by the city council, whether it had a Democrat majority or a Republican majority, and irrespective of whether the mayor was a Democrat or Republican. Labeling a person who has committed an unjustified homicide as a murderer is not a prohibited personal attack. It's an accurate descriptive term. We are not dealing with agencies or departments of government that rise suddenly of their own volition to quash the rights of tenants. We are not dealing with faceless, nameless government bureaucrats that are perpetuating the existence of policies providing landlords with protections from their liabilities that harm tenants. We know who these individuals are. We have them on record and we have them on videotape. Morrissey, Sheeran, Soriento, and Montello. The council must remain vigilant against forces of resistance, both outside the council and from within.
Thank you, Eric. You've exceeded your time.
I'm not done. I have one more paragraph, and there's no way my 5 minutes expired.
Well, we've been timing you, so we know
You've
it
been
has.
I got 41. Removing city officials who have spent a decade or more blocking the enrichment of tenant protections or failing to enforce the ones on the books, modernizing the charter and code that relate to housing policy, and instituting the Emergency Tenant Protection Act in Troy are the tenants' only hope to be let out of the hell of housing deprivation and be released from the chains of the affordability rental crisis.
Thank you.
Now I'm done.
Does anyone else wish to speak on any agenda item?
Hello again, everybody. I was told no, but can you hear me now? Because I was told I wouldn't. Okay. I'm just gonna go through really quick and
You have to speak right into the mic.
I'm
If-
sorry. I'm
If
doing
you
it
want to
again.
take it off and hold it, that's possible too.
Is that better?
That might be
All right,
better.
wonderful.
Yeah.
I don't need to say my name again, do I?
Yeah, please.
Okay, my name is Michelle Ledbetter. I live in Troy. I did want to talk about improving housing quality through specifically with landlords. And the way that the town could help us with that is by I have to slow down. Having more clear communication with code enforcement. With my experience, I've had a lot of problems. I was here about a year ago for a code enforcement issue that I still haven't resolved, and it cost me a ridiculous amount of money. So if there's a way that code enforcement, when they change rules, that there should be some way that I could easily go online, look up the codes in a plain English that's easy for me to understand and me not have to be a contractor. Because it's easier if I know what codes to look forward to or look into when I'm trying to develop my property, and I could have a better understanding about how much something would cost. I said that. Streamlining permits and inspections. Sometimes, a lot of the times they are pretty speedy and they do a pretty good job, but there are times where it can, and it has been a little bit more difficult for me to obtain a permit. Consistent accountability to the actual owner. So if once they do know, and there is no possibility that they can't know, it's very important to keep them accountable, especially when you hear about all these bad homeowners and landlords. Maybe the accountability should be more stronger, or I hate to say it, but maybe fees need to be more higher and expensive for people who are openly not listening and getting doing whatever they want as owners to people who have tenants. And that being said, I did hear a lot of people talk today about how they don't like being tenants. And I did mention earlier that the tiny home idea, or like some type of area where where the Troy could kind of try to develop a space where there's smaller houses, but less than 1,500 square feet that people can afford, that could kind of help get us out of this place where we're mostly renters. And there's nothing wrong with renters, but you're going to be in a better city when you have more people paying into it, and then they have ownership, and then you have these people who are owning these houses, so they're not going to let them fall down, and they're not going to let them become ugly. And it's like there should be some type of like, driving from my house, I live on 3 Farrell Road, from that spot all the way down here, I think I saw about 3 or 4 red X's. It shouldn't even have gone to that, because it's like, I know that it's expensive to keep these houses. Is that over a minute? That's all I've been, okay, great. I know it's expensive because I just spent in the last year, no exaggeration, about $165,000 in just my houses. Like I didn't make any extra money, just keeping things maintained. And I think for a lot of people that I've seen, even if they wanted to own something, I think that would be way too, it's like, it's not realistic unless you rent, or unless you rent out to people. And listening to people also, they think that like old landowners are some type of big fat cats. And it's not really true. Yes, I'm a housewife, but my husband has 2 jobs, and we also have military assistants. And I also have 4 properties. So it's like, it's not like we're swimming in oil over here. I just think it's just important that maybe, I don't really know who to talk to, because it's really, I have a lot of ideas, but I did just want to bring up those few things to you. And I'm sorry if I sound long-winded.
No, we thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful night.
You
I
too.
appreciate your time. Thank you.
Again, my name is Brian Marsh, and I own Marsh Management. You heard a lot of passion tonight from the tenants who have bad landlord situations, and I feel for them. I am also a real estate broker. I have helped my own tenants migrate from my own apartments into houses, and here in Troy, who I give them a free month rent, their last month's rent. If they buy a house with me, I even give them some of the money that they would pay me as a commission back. It's a pathway that I very much believe in. May I ask that we silence?
Yeah,
the people?
folks, we'd like to hear the speaker. So could we keep it down, the noise level, please?
You
Thank
just
you.
heard from another passionate small landlord, and believe it or not, we are small landlords. Person who answers the phone at 4 a.m. when there's an issue is me. And I believe very much it's this young lady here and her husband who also run a small business. The people who live out of state are the problem. It's not the people who are here who respond when the tenant calls. And I feel for those people who have issues with their landlords. I just think you're lumping everybody into the BlackRock ownership of, of buying up these properties. And you're not fairly helping people like me who have a tenant who becomes addicted to drugs, who doesn't pay her rent. I can't get her out. She rents rooms to prostitutes. It's 5 months later and I still earn nothing. I file an eviction. She asked the attorney for legal aid. They get her legal aid. What's the defense? There is none. 30 days later, then 14 days service. I'm 6 months out of rent. Who helps me when I have to claim that as a loss? Nobody. Who helps me when I have a tenant who leaves the water on because they're pissed off over a $25 late fee, thousands of dollars a year? I happen to think code enforcement does an excellent job. Carlo, Aldo, Billy, they are very balanced. I think Judge Blasi is very fair. He's by the book and he doesn't let me get away with anything or my attorney get away with anything. And I always sit down and mediate my cases with my tenants. But if you can't pay and you're 6 months behind in the rent, you have no excuse other than you can't pay. What am I supposed to do? Where's my justice? If you destroy the apartment, destroy tens of thousands of dollars, where's my justice back to recoup that? It's not fair to just say that landlords are always the bad guy. Tenants always deserve all the rights. There has to be some compromise. And I understand everyone's passion here. I can't imagine them living in that situation. But when I have to spend thousands of dollars remediating bed bugs because my tenant brings in a couch they found on the side of the road, who pays? I do. Thousands of dollars it costs me to remediate that problem. So I just ask that you fairly look at this problem and you fairly find a solution. That's what democracy is all about. And I really hope that you don't think the young lady and I are the bad guys that everyone seems to might want to make us out to be. On the short elevator ride up here, as soon as I said I'm pro landlord and I'm pro fair housing, I'm pro fair tenant rights, and I told him how many apartments I owned, he smirked and said I'm the bad guy. It's not fair. I ask you to be fair. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak on any agenda item? Seeing none, we will move into our agenda. We have 2 local laws and 4 resolutions. Local law number 1, local law adopting the provisions of Article 6A of the Real Property Law to make the good cause eviction law applicable in Troy, New York. Councilmember Spain McLaren, Councilmember Campbell Cohen, Council President Steele. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Councilmember Favreau. Is there a second?
Second.
Councilmember McKee. Discussion on local law number 1.
Council President.
Councilmember McLaren.
This has kind of been a long time coming. And I want to say to the landlords who are here because you care, who are good landlords who care about their tenants. To us, you're not the bad guys. And we need more people like you, or we wouldn't have tenants that need protections. I think the way this is balanced is that if you are a good landlord, then you're going to have fewer issues with tenants because you are taking care of the property, and the tenants aren't needing to invoke good cause eviction because you're not giving them reason for that, if that makes sense. The absentee landlords, the LLCs, the out-of-state landlords, those are the people who tenants need protection from. I just, the week before last, when we had that really bad cold snap, in the neighborhood that I teach in, 2 children in my class missed a full week of school come to find out, in both of their homes, their pipes burst. Landlords couldn't be reached. Code came. They were put out of their houses. They had to go stay with family elsewhere and had to miss school because they didn't have a way to get there. Luckily, both are back in as far as we know, but when we started to talk about it in class, a couple more kids raised their hand and said, yeah, our water doesn't work either. It's a real life, everyday problem. And we've heard countless stories over the last couple of years about how bad things are. And, this is only a start, I think, like we've heard many people say tonight. So it's not meant to stack the cards against good landlords. It's meant to try to even things out and make sure that tenants aren't getting, aren't suffering the way so many of them in Troy are.
Councilmember Campbell Cole.
Thank you, Council President. I just wanted to express my appreciation to everyone who came and spoke on this tonight, both for and against. I can't, in good conscience, address every one of these points because we got a timeline here, but I did want to comment on a couple concerns that were raised, all of which I completely get, and maybe provide points of clarification, if not for the speakers, then for the people listening. For the gentleman earlier who described a tenant running up and down the stairs at 3 a.m. to annoy him, under good cause, that's nuisance behavior, so it is evictable. But also, it sounds like it was to annoy you. And if you live in that building, owner-occupied buildings with no more than 10 units are not protected by good cause. So you're actually in the clear on that, for better or for worse. And then the other concern that was raised about what a landlord is supposed to do if there's an extraordinary water bill that you had raised, which is to me a completely understandable concern, and you have my sympathies there. What good cause does is it establishes 5% plus CPI or 10%, whichever is lower, as presumptively unreasonable. It doesn't say that it's unlawful, and those things get conflated pretty often, I think, just because it's easier to talk about that way. But it says presumptively unreasonable and not unlawful because of situations like what you're describing, where you do have a burden of proof to demonstrate. But things like really high water bills, fee increases, stuff like that, that's where you can make your argument and sort of pierce that soft cap. I totally get where you're coming from here, and I appreciate everything you do for your tenants. And I'm sorry that you have that situation, but you would be able to raise rents. Again, that might be cold water for some, but hopefully,
yeah,
hopefully good news for you. I'm a sponsor of this legislation. I, of course, support it. I also don't find it interesting to demonize landlords. I know you guys have a job to do, and if there are resources that you guys need or that you'd like the city to be part of, I'm happy to have a conversation with anybody about the best way to move forward. We want tenant protections, but it doesn't do us any good if we regulate you guys out of the picture. And so whatever resources you're looking for, I'm happy to have a conversation with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Council President.
Councilmember Di Lorenzo.
I just want to echo what my colleagues have spoken about tonight. And I want to thank everyone who came here to speak on good cause, for and against. Excellent points were made tonight. And thank you for coming and listening, speaking, and just being part of the process. The supporters of good cause collected thousands of signatures. They've made excellent points. They've looked at the data. They brought many stories. I've heard stories knocking at doors during my campaign. I've heard stories up here in this seat about, and in a seat in the audience here tonight in this in this room in the past of about bad situations for tenants. And the point has been made to me, and I've learned a lot over the months about good cause. And, you know, it is not a radical law. It is not a revolutionary law. It is simple and it's straightforward. Placing a cap on rent increases and requiring landlords to have a legitimate reason to evict a tenant is simple. It's straightforward. Critics will say, you know, this is going to hurt landlords and drive up costs, and I don't believe that argument holds water. And I think that it misses a fundamental truth. I think that it misses the truth that housing is not just any commodity. It's about safety, stability, and dignity. It's one of the most basic human necessities, and it's something that is so essential, and it shouldn't just be treated like a speculative investment. So to be clear, I believe this law will not meaningfully affect the many good landlords in this city and the landlords that take care of their tenants and do their homework. But I think it will affect bad landlords and landlords that are absentee landlords that don't invest in the community and don't take responsibility for their buildings and for their tenants. And frankly, I believe that this law is meant to address those landlords. With home ownership only getting more expensive, I think renting is going to continue to grow in the city. And I want Troy to thrive, and I want Troy's population to grow, and I want to attract people to live here and move here. And stability, this good cause, I believe, will bring stability to Troy. And stability isn't just good for tenants, but it's good for the long-term health of the city. And so I want to encourage my fellow council members here to vote to move this to a vote at the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, council member. Anyone else? I would just say, for me, this is a matter of justice. It's housing justice. It's a start. It's by no means the end. We have a lot to look at when it comes to housing. We've had some excellent suggestions tonight. Echoing my colleagues, I thank everyone who came out, not just tonight, but for years. This is something that we have heard repeatedly, and I'm really proud that we are taking one step forward towards conclusion of this. So all in favor of local law number 1 moving on to the regular meeting?
Aye.
Opposed? We have 6-0 on local law number 1. Local law number 2, a local law amending Chapter 2 of the Code of the City of Troy to add a new Article 7 for the purpose of authorizing remote participation by video conferencing for the public members of the City Council and all other public bodies of the City of Troy. Councilmember Spain McLaren, Councilmember McKee. Is there a motion?
Motion.
You
can't
are
make
a
it.
sponsor, so you can't.
Motion.
Councilmember
Second.
Fabro and seconded by Councilmember Di Lorenzo. Discussion on the local law.
Council President,
Councilmember McKee.
I support this law for video conferencing. I think, again, we are in the 21st century. We have the technology to allow for more people to participate in their democracy. And we can see in the current environment where we are losing our democracy. And I think that moving forward with this law for video conferencing will generate more participation at the local level and just enhance our democracy here and protect it. So I just want to say that I definitely support this law. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I would just make the point that other boards in the city are using this technology. Why shouldn't the city council? It's in my estimation, a no-brainer. Councilmember McKee said it much more eloquently than I, but it is truly time for us to use every tool available to us to encourage public participation. We've had instances where illness prevented someone from being present at our meetings, or maybe there was a childcare issue, or maybe there's a mobility issue or transportation. There's a number of reasons why this makes common sense. And so I'm thrilled that we're moving it one step closer.
Council President.
Councilmember McLaren.
As someone who has had to miss a couple of meetings due to something that would not have prevented me from participating by video, I appreciate that now if such things were to arise again, I would be able to participate.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Local law number 2 is adopted for referral to our regular meeting. Moving on to resolutions. Resolution 26, resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into a memorandum of agreement with the Saratoga County Animal Shelter. Council President Steele at the request of the administration. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Councilmember McLaren with a second by Councilmember McKee. Discussion on the resolution.
Council President.
Councilmember Favreau.
I'm just curious if there's somebody from the administration that can let us know how much we've paid to Saratoga County in 2025, since we don't have the financials yet.
Hi. So we don't have the exact number of that, but it is less expensive than what we were paying prior to our old contractor.
Do you have any ballpark figures to what we spent?
Yeah, we can get back to you on the exact number.
Contract with Mohawk Hudson was up around contract with Mohawk Hudson was in the mid 200,000s, I believe, when we stopped using them. City is required by Article 7 of the Ag and Markets Law to provide shelter for the stray animals that we pick up. The fees are detailed in the contract, which is attached to the legislation. I believe they're certainly reasonable. But we can try to get an exact figure of how much we spent in 2025. Is that what you're looking for?
Specifically, but it would be nice to compare to our previous arrangement with Mohawk.
Okay.
Yeah.
If we would.
We can do that. We just don't have
Send
it.
that to the entire council. That would be appreciated.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Council President.
Councilmember McLaren.
I don't, obviously it's an arrangement that we need to have. And I know that housing some animals in our garage here has become a necessity because of some of the dogs that the Saratoga County can't take, or just because they're full. I don't know how likely it is that Rensselaer County would ever fund a shelter. But I wonder if we could encourage that.
Hi, all. So I'll fill you in, just for council members, the new council members. When I took office in 2024 and council member Spain McLaren and Council President Steele are aware of this. Literally in the freezing cold, second week of January, we have a couple stray dogs. Our animal control officer, Kevin McDonough, we had a contract with the Humane Society, paying them quite a bit of money. Long story short, Kevin went over to the Humane Society, he had a key, had an arrangement with the Humane Society, a whole process. He was locked out. Right then and there, we literally went into immediate emergency mode. We are required, as our corporation counsel just explained under law, to house these stray dogs. Fast forward 2 years, we've come a long way. Initially, you can only imagine what we learned. We contacted Ag and Markets. We tried to work with the Humane Society. They were at full capacity, but yet they were still taking dozens of dogs when, someone potentially was in violation of having 20, 30, 40 dogs. Fast forward, I cannot emphasize enough the staff here at City Hall, between Maria, who was city clerk at the time, between Joe Mazzarillo, General Services, Seamus, Deputy Mayor, all of us. We turned the garage into essentially a temporary shelter. We can't be a full-fledged shelter. We don't have the staff capacity to have folks come adopt dogs directly. So Maria and others and myself visited Saratoga County Animal Shelter. If you haven't seen it, it's the Taj Mahal of animal shelters. It is absolutely beautiful. It's a nonprofit, the county working together, staffing it, volunteers, you name it. So they essentially now partner with us. We've also created other partnerships with other nonprofits, but we have to hold the dogs for a certain amount of days. They send their folks to come down. They do an assessment. Unfortunately, some dogs they can't take immediately. Some dogs they do. Our shelter at DPW, Ag and Markets, comes pretty regularly to inspect it, and we do fantastic. And that's literally due to just the folks, us, going into this uncharted water territory. What I did find out over the past 2 years, to your question, council member, is we're not the only ones. Obviously, we're the largest municipality on this side of the river, but Waterville, Cohoes, some other towns, they're scraping to figure out how to do it. Brunswick, for a little while, wanted to use our shelter. We obviously just have the means for Troy. We can partner with other municipalities. So on a larger scale, there does need to be potentially a regional solution. We have a great short-term solution right now. We've created, like I said, more partnerships with other nonprofits. But there are other municipalities in need. The county to date has not shown that they are interested in building a shelter. The County of Albany, Craig Apple, I've talked to him. He's actually turning part of the jail over there into a shelter. He is having a tough time also. He received some funding from Ag and Markets, grant, but it does require under Ag and Markets to be a full-fledged shelter, a number of new regulations. There was a new law recently passed that actually went into action this year. So it's difficult. It's a tough road, but we have found a solution. We've created partnerships. I can't say enough about Saratoga County. They stepped up to the plate when we were in real need for that partnership. But our garage, it's fully heated. It sounds like, oh my gosh, a garage. No, we have all of the necessities that are needed. Folks have donated everything from blankets to food, you name it. If you know folks that want to donate, please contact our General Services Commissioner. He'll direct you to the staff person that's working on our end, who will be partnering with Eddie because the city clerk has certain duties and then General Services because we maintain the shelter and all of that. So we have a good solution, but yes, there does need to be a regional
Yes.
solution.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Any other questions?
Is someone from the administration available? Oh, are you still here? On the fourth whereas here, it says that the terms of the agreement are being modified to more effectively memorialize the wishes of each party. Is anything changing besides the dates of it?
Not that I'm aware of now. Same arrangement, and I think that's boilerplate language.
Cool.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. In terms of the dollars, we'll get you that number, but I can state for a fact it's much lower, much lower than the agreement we have with the Humane Society.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is adopted 6-0. Resolution 27, resolution commending the Troy Division of the Ancient Order of Hibernians for its service to the communities of Troy. Council President Steele, at the request of the administration, is there a motion?
Motion.
Motion.
Councilmember McLaren, seconded by Councilmember Di Lorenzo. Discussion,
Council President,
Councilmember Di Lorenzo.
I just want to say these guys do a lot of great work for Troy. Every Tuesday, they are up at the Lansingburg Food Pantry at St. Augustine's, doing great work, giving food out to people who need it. And I spent some time volunteering there a couple of months ago, and they do great work up there. And I just want to say thank you, and I commend them.
Thank you and thank you. Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution 27 adopted 6-0. Resolution 28, resolution proclaiming March 2026 as Women's History Month in the city of Troy. Councilmember Struber, Councilmember McKee, Councilmember Favreau, at the request of the administration. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Councilmember McLaren,
Second.
seconded by Councilmember Di Lorenzo. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution 28 adopted 6-0. Resolution 29, resolution proclaiming March 2026 as Developmental Disabilities Month in the city of Troy. Councilmember Spain McLaren, at the request of the administration. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Councilmember Campbell Cohen,
Second.
by Councilmember Favreau. Discussion on the resolution?
Council President.
Councilmember McLaren.
I've said this before, and I'll say it again. If you are a family of someone with a developmental disability, awareness is all year long, 24/7. I think it will be a good thing if we can move into the language of acceptance from awareness, like we've done with the autism resolution for April, which is a nationwide. It wasn't Troy making that move. It was a national move. We're committed to thinking differently, which is amazing. But I would like to add, perhaps by amendment, that the national theme for Developmental Disability Month is the importance or the power of support, because it is very important for families and for people with the disabilities to have support, the support of their community, the support of their educational institutions, their community. And I would just like to challenge people to, we talk a lot about allyship and being aware and being accepting, but go that extra step, say hello, ask questions. I think people would rather answer questions, especially, maybe from a young child. I've seen parents kind of discourage their kids from going right up to somebody in a wheelchair and asking them questions. I think people would rather answer questions than have someone wonder or have a mom have to whisper behind their back to their children. I don't know if we need to make it by amendment.
Well, I was going
We
to
could-
ask. would you-
Okay, could
would you-
we make an amendment to
Yes,
add,
please.
in the second whereas, the second paragraph, that the city council continues to be committed to the Think Differently initiative and recognizes the national theme of, in quotes, the power of support.
Okay. Is that the only
Mhm.
amendment?
Yes.
So we have a motion to amend. Is there a second?
Sure, second.
Is there an issue?
Yeah, wasn't there another amendment that you had proposed maybe last year for acceptance? First of all, I apologize that I'm not sure where I got this template or whether I came up with it myself or someone sent it to me. But I do recall that this was amended last year.
I don't think it was this one. I think it was the autism one.
Oh, well, it could have been that
That
one
we
then. Maybe
changed
that's it. Maybe
to,
that's it.
because the national movement went from awareness to acceptance. That hasn't happened yet with this one. I was just noting that it would be nice if we move that way someday, but it's not recognized nationally that way. So I wasn't suggesting that part be amended. I just wanted to add the national theme into it.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, though.
I mean, I'll make whatever changes you want.
Okay, thanks.
So we have a motion on the floor regarding the second whereas. It's been made and seconded. Discussion on the amendment. Is everyone clear as to the wording that we're adding? Addie, Addie is adding. On the amendment, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The amendment passes. On the amended resolution discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have an amended resolution adopted 6-0. At this time, I would entertain any council members who may wish to speak.
Council President.
Councilmember McLaren.
I think I would be remiss if I didn't mention that most of us expected to have another resolution on this agenda. But unfortunately, it didn't make it that far. And that is the one where the council was condemning the actions of ICE,
We passed it. We passed that.
but it didn't get signed, right?
No, it didn't get signed, but it wouldn't be on this agenda.
Right, but it didn't get signed.
That's-
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, it wouldn't have been on this agenda, but it did not, it didn't get signed. And I think I feel like I would be derelict in my duty if I didn't bring it up. I think it was this council as a whole kind of expressing our constitutional right to speak out against something in a peaceful way. It was our peaceful protest. You know, some of us have participated out on the streets in peaceful protest. This was our way as a whole for the council to peacefully protest the actions of ICE in our community and nationwide. It was not a statement about us believing in lawlessness. It was not a statement about us believing that people should not obey laws. It was not about us being anti-law enforcement. I know that night, and I will speak for myself now when I say that if you are here illegally, and most importantly, if you engage in criminal behavior, you should expect to be deported. You should also expect due process. And I think that's what we were speaking out against, the many people who have not received due process. Many citizens, American citizens, with no question of their immigration status being hurt and murdered by ICE officers, many of whom are not trained like our law enforcement officers are. I think it was made to sound like it was us expressing a political opinion. I don't believe that's what it was. I don't believe that expressing our belief in human rights and in the right of all citizens to due process, whether you're here illegally or not. I think that's what the statement was about. It was not political. And I guess I just wanted to clear the air about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to say anything? Okay, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Councilmember Favreau, second. Councilmember Di Lorenzo, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Was it? Okay.
Well said.